This is a very controversial topic, and I hesitated to broach it, but I wanted to broach it just a little bit. And leave me your comments in the leave me your comments in the comment box or comment section, and give me a like, give me a share. Let's see what your thoughts are. This, cause like myself being a believer, I believe that you can have a relationship with God, and God hears you. Whatever God, everybody's religion is different. I'm a Christian. There are Muslims. There are Buddhists. There are different belief systems. But you should have a belief because it gives you faith. It gives you something to lean on. As a Christian, I believe that my voice can be heard when I pray to my God. I don't need a third party to do that on my behalf. I believe I can take the Bible on my phone as a paper version, whatever. I can read it or audible version. For some of us who has ADHD and maybe learning, I prefer to listen to my Bible, and there's no judgment. Oh, everybody's different. But you have to do that work yourself at whatever pace. Give yourself grace based on the fact that if you're raising kids, being myself, being a single mom, how much time does it leave for me? Maybe I might read a passage, and sometimes that's enough. And say my prayer all through the day. There shouldn't be a designated set place or a set place or time for you to do a prayer. It's helpful to do it in the morning or evening so you can reflect and show gratitude, do your praises and your worship, and showing gratitude to your higher power, to God. It's so important to have that relationship with your God, that direct connection, knowing that you have agency. It's so important. Now, ladies, African ladies, Ghanaian ladies, this is where the hyper religiosity becomes a bit of an issue, where you default. I've been there, trust me, I've been there. You default big decision making, especially picking a partner, being in an abusive relationship or not, seeing patterns that doesn't serve you or your children, but staying in it and hoping that with prayer there's some miracle that's going to come and change your situation, rather than taking intentional, safe, tactical decisions to exit, to run, to self-preservate, to preserve your self-worth and self-esteem, knowing that man is not doing you right. Sometimes even some of these pastors might not be doing you right, because sometimes it's all about the bottom line, or it's about you serving. This hyper focus on serving. Usually the people serving are what? Women. So you're bringing your service. So it's all about them type of thing. So this is very controversial. Let me know in the description box what you think. Dina Chumesi here, your favorite psych nurse practitioner, coming at you with another video. Thank you so much for checking my channel. Welcome if you're the first time. I talk about everything relating to mental health, everything relating to high conflict, narcissistic, abusive relationships, how to recognize the patterns, the red flags, how to heal and level up after breakup. Should I stay? Should I go? After separation and divorce, how to minimize that impact, minimize vulnerability, and you can live a wholesome aspect of your life and your children. And then to talk about the second point is periods. A lot of men come from where the period comes, the hot part. I call it the hot part, but because I heard somebody saying, I'm like, that's so cute to call it that, but it is the hot oven. But we do have periods, and periods will regulate our cycles. Women go through cycles. We are very complex, okay? That's why we have a lot of more emotions than men do, because our hormones, estrogen, progesterone, on and on you go. It fluctuates depending on your time of month, your age, Men need to learn more about that. But to say that in African culture, you can't even, some cultures, you can't even serve maybe a man or show up in the Muslim community when you have your period. If it's time of Ramadan, you're fasting. Yes, they exempt you. Like if you're breastfeeding, also if you're pregnant, they exempt you. But you're supposed to make that up. What type of punishment is this? Like, you're the woman, how many months a week can you fast now to make up for almost a year of being pregnant? But do you see the dynamic of how these things, at what time or when women we also have to make up for certain things. It doesn't happen that way. But this is how we are made. When we have a period or we stain ourselves, when we have a period, people go like, ew. But that's nature. And why are we being ashamed? You can't even serve your elder, like your parent, your dad, maybe serve your food or whatever when you're your period. You're supposed to like stay away in certain cultures. Not to talk about the genital mutilation that happens. So women don't have feelings down there. And this is part of setting belief systems in Africa to cut the clitoris so women don't have desire down there. These are all very controversial. These are all conditioning. These are all misogynistic mindset be about the girl child. And these are still ongoing. These are controversial. Very, very controversial. But my biggest thing about this is to believe that periods should be normalized. Boys should be taught at the wrong age about periods, about women, about birthing, about how babies come about in, of course, age appropriate ways. And this has to be done from home all the way through schools, because just the health science would not suffice. And then also looking at religion from the standpoint of men making it, but knowing it for yourself, having that agency, studying the Bible for yourself, doing your motivation for yourself, knowing that you don't need a middleman. Pastor, pray for me. Oh, my pastor said this is the man that speaks for me, and he's, saw in his dream that this man is the one who will marry me. I mean, the man tends to be a monster. Some of the most monstrous men, actually from the church, most narcissistic men, abusive men, are from church. And the support system there, if it doesn't serve their purpose of serving, you are in it for yourself. And
a few years back, as I was doing some research for a paper I was writing in my PhD program, I stumbled across some research that was discussing the role between fundamentalism and high control religion and domestic violence. And unsurprisingly, what I found was very similar to what I had experienced in my own life, as well as what I had seen in my office. Basically, it means that what I had witnessed in my personal and professional life was backed up by research. What I mean by that is that research tells us that the likelihood of a woman staying in an abusive relationship with a man is far greater if she is religious than if she is not. Nancy Nason Clark is one of the seminal researchers in this area and has many research articles and books that explore this dynamic in great detail. What she and other researchers found is that when women are involved in religions where they are taught to be submissive, a homemaker, and a good wife to their husband, they are also encouraged to look inwards and see what they can do to get their husbands to stop abusing them when violence occurs. And as a side note, there's a video that kind of recirculates every few years of Pastor John Piper talking about this topic exactly. In the video, he not only minimizes abuse by calling it unkindness, he also encourages women to stay in these relationships, to seek God rather than local authorities like the police, and to submit herself further to her abusive husband in hopes that God will change his heart. Once again, this is an area where when doctrine and religious ideals are placed in front of or above the actual humanity of a person, the propensity for significant damage to occur is high.
I gotta be honest. First off, I want to say I'm all for supporting people's spiritual journey, but a lot of y'all using your spiritual journey to be strictly an online persona, and I see right through it, honey. The pipeline of party girl, which wasn't even really partying like that. You just had a couple videos of you outside dancing, to the extremist Christian or whatever, Israelite, whatever thing they doing online. Like it's giving real like extremists. Like taking the word like not even literal, like above literal context. I don't know. It's just giving disingenuous, and a lot of them like to bash other women that are in the same I guess, journey with them. Like, why are you bashing it? That's not gonna make people or want to, follow your path, whatever. Like, it's not encouraging at all. Like, for myself, example, I have to be outside, tearing it up. But I don't go around and be like, oh, well, if you're doing all this tearing up and stuff, like, you're not gonna be welcome in the kingdom and all this stuff. Like, I'm not finna do that, because that's not my place, actually. And in the Bible, it states that it's not your place to determine if someone's gonna be into the kingdom of heaven. That's not your job. But anyway, I'm yapping because it's annoying. Like, very annoying. Anyway, y'all let me know in the comments about the party girl to extreme Bible thumper trope. Pipeline. Yeah, pipeline is the perfect word for that. Because, I don't know, it's just giving super disingenuous. And, yeah, that's my opinion on it. Y'all can state your opinions. You can keep it raw with me. It's take a lot to offend me. So, let me know. Y'all have a good Friday. A good weekend, actually. Have a good weekend.
If you want an easy example for why religion is by men for men, look at how it deals with menstruation. If you are Hindu and on your period, you cannot enter temples, perform pujas, or even touch sacred objects. In Shintoism in Japan, if you are on your period, you cannot enter sacred shrines or perform rituals. In many kinds of Islam, if you are on your period, you cannot pray or enter mosques. There are still some religious sites that will not even allow women of menstruating age. The Sabarimala temple in India finally reversed that through a court case in 2018, so very recently. Some Christian Orthodox traditions say that you can't handle the Eucharist if you're on your period. In some Buddhist texts, because women are impure because they have menstruation, they have to reincarnate as a man to achieve enlightenment. We have records of theological debates in medieval Christianity where they're trying to decide whether menstruating women can handle the Bible or participate in theological discussions while they're on their period. Judaism, of course, has many rules around menstruation, and you have to do a ritual to purify yourself after menstruation. You're not allowed to touch your husband during it. It's a whole thing. Across Buddhism and Hinduism, we have ideas that the woman's body is more impure, and so it's going to make their spiritual progress harder. But of all the religions that have told me that I'm impure in some way because my body does something that is very natural to my body, the one honestly that hurts the most is Jesus. Because when Jesus bleeds and Jesus gets blood everywhere, it is sacred and it is life-giving and it's life-affirming, and we're going to do all of these rituals to show how life-affirming this blood is. It's sacred blood. And there's something to me just so hypocritical about women's bodies that create life and blood being a part of that. But yet when a man does it, it's sacred. And then when a woman does it, it's unclean and it's impure and you're less than and your body is less than and you're going to have a hard time becoming enlightened and you're going to be less spiritual. You're going to have less access to spirituality. But when Jesus bleeds, that blood is okay. Jesus's blood did nothing and is praised as everything. But when a woman bleeds and that actually is tied to her ability to create life, it's impure. So not only did the Christian God take everything, like he creates everything without female, but Jesus also took the blood too. And then the women who bleed and actually create life are less than. And that is just such bullshit. There are a lot of things about Jesus that I like, but really what I hate the most is I just had someone yesterday say, I love Jesus because he's the perfect balance of masculine and feminine. And I said, that's great, but we only accept femininity or life-giving blood as sacred when it comes from a man. And that actually does have a cost for women if we only accept femininity when it comes with a penis. So I'm just gonna leave that there and walk away. If you want an easy example for why religion is by men for men, look at how it deals with menstruation. If you are Hindu and on your period, you cannot enter temples, perform pujas, or even touch sacred objects. In Shintoism in Japan, if you are on your period, you cannot enter sacred shrines or perform rituals. In many kinds of Islam, if you're on your period, you cannot pray or enter mosques.
I was just thinking about this because tell me why the rules are so arbitrary. So Ramadan just started and my sister's friend is Muslim and she said, well, during Ramadan, because you're unclean, if you have your period, you don't have to fast. And I was like, okay, a win is a win, but you still have to cook. I was like, isn't that funny? Men say you're too impure to pray, literally cannot commune with God because you're so filthy, but you are still clean enough to do everything around the house. The Quran literally says everything except, lay with your husband. And I've seen so many women on the app in this past week talking about how they're not having the same experience in Ramadan as the men, because for men, it's a time of spirituality and focus, but women have to do all the same things they always do. They're taking care of the house. They're fixing these feasts on an empty stomach all day, every day, and you can't even focus and do your prayer and everything right because you are serving all these men who make it about them. If you don't do the food right or you don't cook exactly what they want, and apparently what they want is very labor intensive, they're going to get angry and just ruin the whole day. And please go back and follow No Nonsense Spirituality, who I'm stitching. But like she said, the one that hurts the most for me is Jesus, because I myself was raised Baptist. As a Black Baptist, we didn't have those same kind of encoded religious instructions against touching things or being seen as impure, but it's very cultural. And my sisters know what I'm talking about. You go to church and you sing, oh, the blood of Jesus. I know it was the blood. The blood will never lose its power, but the blood over the communion. And then you are told when you get home that if you leave out clean pads, you're some sort of unclean harlot. We literally sing, worship, honor the blood of Jesus, but the blood of women is so disregarded. And further than that, when I was a girl, which was not long ago, I just had my birthday yesterday.
Happy
so
birthday, girl.
When I was a girl in the 90s, women were still not preaching in my tradition. Mm-hmm. I grew up with ministers saying they would never ordain a woman, and that was commonplace. Mm-hmm. And it's no coincidence, in my opinion, that a lot of the women who rose to prominence in the past couple of decades as ministers, as visionaries, as conduits of God, were then in abusive relationships, like Juanita Bynum and Yolanda Adams. Oftentimes, the church will break you down to nothing. Remember when Juanita Bynum came out, her whole message was no more sheets. Your entire spirituality as a woman is wrapped up in what you do or don't do with your vagina. That's all women are ever preached at about celibacy and staying pure for your husband and serving a man. And then she had that huge elaborate wedding on TBN. God had finally sent her mate, and he had to marry both her hands and give her those 2 huge rings, all for him to later be exposed beating her in the parking lot of an Atlanta hotel where strangers had to pull him off. And what did the church do about it? Yes, nothing. Mm-hmm. And her husband was a minister. The church never sat him down, never punished him. He pled guilty. There were witnesses, and they say he pushed her down, kicked and stomped her, choked her. And he continued to have a church and live his life. She divorced him, and that sparked a huge conversation about the role of the church in DV, which still has not come very far. I remember there was a feature in Essence, and one woman who had been in a violent relationship said that, the church posits that you're supposed to suffer in life. And a lot of women think that this is just the suffering, their marriage, their abusive marriage. And they're made to think that by the church. And I completely agree.
Yeah.
And there's that cultural component again. Oh, don't call the police on another Black man. If you want a better life as a woman, the first thing you should decenter is religion, particularly the Abrahamic ones. And I covered this in my upcoming book, It's All About You, Decentering Men and Others for a Better Life, in Chapter 2, The Religion of Self First. Because I've been telling you all for years, anything men say, believe the opposite. And religion has been the ultimate destiny swap. They took away all your power and left you with the work. So men have made themselves the life givers. They're aligned with the ultimate authority. They're the natural heads according to them. And then they tell you, after having kept the power of literacy from most women in most cultures, oh, the Holy Book says that you are number 2. The Holy Book says you're underneath me. The Holy Book says you're supposed to submit to me. The Holy Book says you're unclean. And it says the things that you do daily, like caring for your children, cooking, cleaning, are either unimportant or actually have no spiritual merit, because that labor is invisible to men. The first time I ever recall having a real problem with this is when I was a girl, and you hear the story of Jesus, Mary, and Martha. Jesus loved to visit his friend Lazarus and his 2 sisters, Mary and Martha, and he would go to their house and hang out, enjoying Martha's hospitality, because Martha was tirelessly cooking and cleaning and doing everything she could to entertain Jesus in a lavish, hospitable way. Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet, soaking up the sunshine and listening to him teach. And when Martha got overwhelmed and she asked Jesus to tell Mary to help her, he said, "Martha, Martha, you're upset and worried about many things, but few things are needed. Only one. Mary has chosen what's better and it's not going to be taken away from her." So in other words, what you're doing is just temporary. It's not important. All while sitting there eating the food that Martha had made. As a child, it really pissed me off because the thing is, Jesus, according to the Bible, had the power to create food from nothing. So why didn't you whisk away Martha's chores so she can sit here and learn too? What you did was dismiss her, devalue her work while still enjoying the fruits of her labor, and tell her the problem was all in her head. That was so disrespectful because remember, guys, Jesus had a posse of 12 people he traveled around with. He had a whole entourage. Imagine grinding the grain into flour for the bread, baking the bread, fetching water by hand, etc., for all of these people. And then you're being told what you are doing has no merit. It's always going to be like that in spirituality because the men at the center of it have never run a household. Jesus never had any children. And if he ever needed anything, he could either create it from a miracle or somebody else gave it to him, like the donkey he rode into the city. And if you continue to imbibe religion that teaches you that what you have to contribute to the world is not worthwhile, you will always feel like you're less than. Unless your spirituality is woman-centric and has a place to acknowledge the divine feminine, you are going to be made to feel as though your womanhood is something for you to overcome. That you have to get rid of Eve's sinful nature, or that you can't be disrespectful and lead a bad life like Jezebel. The most important thing you can be is pure like the Virgin Mary. And the most important thing you can do is be an appendage to a man. And through that, you might make some kind of difference in life, like Ruth or Queen Esther, or Abigail or Sarah. Are you touching and agreeing with men in the Bible bonding over trading the bodies of women young enough to be their daughters? Over the fact that the Bible and the Torah say that for a woman to avoid being labeled unclean if she's assaulted, she should marry her rapist? But it's cool if he doesn't marry her as long as he pays her father for what he took. The worst curse is the one you put on yourself. So be careful what you sit under and allow yourself to be taught as spirituality, as the word of God. And believe whatever you want. Worship any way you choose. Believe in any holy book you choose. But be aware that men kept women purposefully out of education, away from literacy. Only the highest born ladies in most cultures had access to those things because men didn't want to be able to read these texts for themselves. And now they've been translated so often in favor of men, you don't know what they originally said. Don't take anything on blind faith. That's it. Like and follow for more.